Our opening song today, of course, was I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And what a fitting song it is for today's meeting, where we're going to talk about how do we sustain our hope and our activism in the current political mayhem that we're going through. And I can speak from personal experience about the importance of having hope. For a couple of decades, after I first learned about climate change, I found myself struggling to stay hopeful. And through all that time, even though I care deeply about the environment and I care deeply about my kids' future, I pretty much sat on my hands and did nothing. Well, then finally, about 5 years ago, I decided to step up and do something. And that decision that I made 5 years ago eventually led me here to Third Act. And so what I've learned over the last few years, especially since I got involved with Third Act, is that hope is a choice. When we choose hope, we feel empowered to take action. And when we take action, especially when we join forces with others, we can really make a difference. So hope is vital, and people are hungry for hope. And I like to think of hope as oxygen for the soul. So today, I'm so happy about this, excited. We have the honor of hearing from two of our most dedicated and fearless thinkers and activists. And through thick and thin and over decades, Bill McKibben and Jane Fonda have chosen hope over and over again and have truly made a difference, not just in the environmental and the political work that they've done, but also in inspiring millions of people, including me, to join in their activism. So, right now, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome our special guests. Bill McKibben is Third Act's founder, a renowned climate educator, and OG activist, and author of the soon-to-be-released book called Here Comes the Sun, A Last Chance for the Climate and a Fresh Chance for Civilization, coming out next month. And Jane Fonda, of course, is an Academy Award-winning actress. She's a frontline climate activist. She's the founder of the Jane Fonda Climate PAC. She's a lifelong rabble-rouser and an inspiration to millions. So Jane and Bill, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome and take it away.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much, Phil. What a pleasure to get to join everybody. And Jane, what a pleasure to get to be with you. I want to just give people one quick update in line with what Phil was saying about hope. Something useful and big happened yesterday when the International Court for Justice in The Hague ruled on a case brought by young people in the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu that governments have a legal responsibility to try and prevent climate change. This isn't going to immediately translate into Exxon paying the reparations they owe the rest of the world or anything like that. But it is a powerful reminder that it's not necessarily always going to be the same political moment that we're living through now. If we do our jobs, a time will come when people are held accountable for the things that they've been doing, including the real crime of destroying the climate system on which the Earth depends. So for me, it couldn't be more fun to get to be with Jane, who everybody knows is on the very, very short list of the greatest actors that America's ever produced, but who also is an absolute world-class activist, not a celebrity who does some activism from time to time or helps out or things, but one of the finest organizers I've ever met. Fire Drill Fridays was so successful that the Washington police eventually told Jane that if she got arrested any more times, she was going to be spending a year or two in a bunk in DC. And happily, we were able to persuade her that that was not the highest and best use of her time, though I think she was willing to do it. And Jane Pack, her incredible political action work on especially down ballot races across the country has been a crucial part of this fight in recent years. So, Jane, tell me what things are keeping you hopeful at the moment and going on strong.
The fact that I'm going strong keeps me hopeful. You know what, Phil? I agree with everything Phil said and you said about hope. I think I see hope as a muscle, like the heart is. And it's when, Greta Thunberg said, I love this quote. She said, everybody goes looking for hope. Look for action, and hope will come.
Right.
And, I first met you, Bill, before Fire Drill Friday. I met you, I had been marching on a jobs and climate rally with Naomi Klein and others in Canada. And we met then. And I was kind of depressed then because I wasn't doing it full time. I wasn't doing it
Full-heartedly.
family. That's what's so great about Third Act. That's being part of an organization makes you safe, that people can pick you up when you're down. The minute that I started, and well, you were part of the start of Fire Drill Friday, just to let people know, I this was like 2019, and I was depressed because I knew that I wasn't doing everything I could. I was doing a lot, but not enough, given that I have a platform. And so I had an idea I just decided I was going to move to DC and camp out in front of the White House and raise a ruckus. I was worried about where to poop. I do a lot of camping, including in blizzards, and I know how to deal with poop in the wilderness, but I don't, what do you do when you're in a city? Anyway, I was laying all this out on Annie Leonard, who was running Greenpeace at the time, and she said, well, you don't have to worry about that because it's legal.
We'll see it later.
Not in Washington anymore.
Good.
Let's get together on a conference call tomorrow with Bill McKibben and Jay Halfon and Naomi Klein and others. And you were the one, Bill, who reminded us what had been done in the anti-apartheid movement, the constant, every day getting arrested with civil disobedience. And that's what led to Fire Drill Friday. So I really am grateful to you. When I started Fire Drill Friday and ever since, I don't get depressed anymore because I know that what I'm doing is strategic. I am not alone. I'm with people like you and many others that are real experts in this. And this is really weird. I'm happy. I feel better than I have in a long time because I know that what I'm doing is strategic and I have people that I trust. And, we all need meaning in our lives, right? And once we've discovered the joy of resistance and the joy of activism, you don't go back.
Well, when you were saying before that hope is a muscle, it suddenly reminded me that, I left out one of the other facets of your remarkable career, which is that you've probably built more American muscle than any other person in the country. And so that raises the question of, just as when one is doing aerobics, it helps to do it with enthusiasm, but also with the proper form. And, we think carefully about what it is that'll have the most impact going forward. I wanted to talk about two sort of prongs of that. One of them, of course, is electoral politics, and that's crucial. And we're 14 months out or 15 months out from our next chance to really make that matter. And the other is, and sometimes people think of them as in opposition, but in fact, they're very complementary. The kind of the kind of public demonstration of what one thinks and how how one feels. As we get ready for Sunday on September 21st, that's one of those moments when we try and reshape public opinion. And once we've reshaped it, then we can put it to use in election campaigns and everything else. So I'm excited by the prospect as we head towards Sunday that we actually have an enormous chance to do that. I think the one thing that even people on our side haven't yet completely grokked, completely figured out, is that the world is changing and that now on our planet, renewable energy, clean energy, is exactly the same thing as cheap energy. That we live on a planet where the cheapest way to make power is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. And if we could get that through people's heads across the country, that we're not talking about alternative energy anymore, we're talking about straightforward, common sense, obvious choice, then I think we'd be making political hay that would be much use come the midterms.
Yeah, you said we're X number of months away from the political reckoning. I kind of disagree. I think one of the things that I've learned with the Jane PAC, it's the Jane Climate PAC, is it's a year-round thing. We've
Amen.
won 7 special elections already, and when I say we've won, we support climate champions. That is, people who've proven publicly that they are brave enough to stand up to the fossil fuel industry. They don't take money from the fossil fuel industry. And we've elected 7 people, including somebody to Congress. So it doesn't end. We have to keep.
Very true. And God knows there's a fascinating, just watching what's happening in New York City right now is utterly fascinating. And, with the election coming up there.
It sure is. Yeah. Um, so I mean, I think that it's really, really important. Before we started, people were coming on, and several people who came on said that they joined the Jane PAC, which is great. But I think one really strategic thing we have to do is to elect people. We focus down ballot
Yeah,
because
yeah.
right now that's where you can really, without
Yep.
much money as you would have if you were trying to elect a president, you can really make a difference. A lot of climate policy starts on the ground, and it's also building a firewall against what's coming. And it's also building a bench of climate champions that can later
Well, that's for sure.
federal government. Yeah.
So talk for a minute because this is something that you've thought about a lot. I know because we've talked about it in the past. Both you and I have done lots and lots, maybe most of our organizing with young people over the years. Um, um, but I think we're both convinced that older Americans have a particular and in some ways unique role to play in all of this. One of the sources of the name Third Act is a chapter from your autobiography.
Yeah.
Um, so talk a little bit about that particular role that older Americans get to
Well,
play and what an honor it is to get to play it.
a lot of us have gotten wiser. Our priorities have fallen into place. We understand how happy we are when we have meaning in our lives. We also have time. We have time to be activists. And for me, it's a lot of it though has to do with I know what makes me feel good. You know, activism, resistance. It's not eating broccoli. It's joyful. It's fun. It's like you meet whole new friends. You widen your circle. You learn. I mean, if I wasn't an activist, I wouldn't have had the honor. I don't know. There's so many words I could attach to it. Knowing you, spending time with you. I learned so much. You just, when you're old and you're still learning, it's so joyful. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't get depressed anymore. Every time, I mean, I read the paper. I read 2 papers. I watch the news. I'm not one of those who says I'm not going to watch the news anymore. No, I need to know what's happening. But I'm fighting, and I know what I'm fighting and why I'm fighting, and so I don't get depressed.
I hear that.
There's so much to be hopeful because, not only has the new cheap energy really come online and, everywhere, including in the United States, but there are more democratic trifectas. meaning Democrats control the state Senate, the state assemblies, governorships. There's more Democrats have been elected to very key positions in the last few years, and that gives me a lot of hope.
I mean, I confess I get scared and depressed sometimes. And partly that's because I think that being older gives you a more of a perspective. Um, I, I think we're able to realize, and this is both a gift and a curse, that the moment that we're living through is different from any moment that we've lived through in American history. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember Richard Nixon, who was uh, corrupt and an unpleasant human being, but this feels different. The fact that there are lots and lots of our fellow Americans who are afraid to go to the corner store without carrying their papers to prove who they are. Um, Things like that are are are, um, are they could cause us to be scared, and there are lots of institutions that are clearly deciding to be scared and to give in. It was sad to watch uh, uh, CBS, which we used to call the Tiffany Network back in the day, the place where Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and people held sway in our lifetimes, give in and cancel Stephen Colbert because the president didn't like him. Those things are scary, but I think that one other thing that you've said to me in the past is is important here. We don't have perhaps as much to lose as some other people in our society do, just because we've reached a certain age, and that comes with a certain kind of freedom, I think.
Absolutely. I feel, I will do whatever I believe is strategic right now. And what the hell do I have to lose? I'm going into 88. Shoot me. I have said publicly before, this is our documentary moment. I have seen so many documentaries showing brave people marching and being hit by batons and dogs and wondered, would I be as brave as they are? This is it. This is our chance. And I'm up for it. And I bet most of the people on this call are too. And I think that also comes when you're older. It's like, what the heck do we have to lose?
I think that that's really right. It reminds me of something that our mutual friend, Reverend Lennox Yearwood, once said that this is our lunch counter moment. The same way that people had to decide in 1963, how they stood on civil rights. Now we have to decide how we stand on the planet around us, on the democracy that we need to defend it, and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
Jane, you and I are going to be in New York City on Sunday, watching as pictures come in from around the country. Um, you're a you're a you have a innate and intuitive sense of how to reach people. As people here in this audience are planning the kind of things to do on that day, what kind of people are talking about e-bike parades, about ribbon cuttings for solar farms, about solar powered concerts, about protests outside public utility commissions. What kind of things do you think really reach out and capture people who might just be sitting on the sidelines?
I don't know. I wish I could ask every single person on this call if they have the same experience. Every day, almost, someone will come up to me and say, I want to get arrested with you. When we started Fire Drill Fridays in 2019, about 65, 70% of Americans were concerned about climate, but it hadn't moved to action. Um, and I think people want to take action now. So I, th I think people should get arrested. I do. I mean, what,
I,
what let's name the big villains: Exxon, Mobil, Shell, Chevron. Let's chain ourselves to their corporate doors. Let's let's engage in civil disobedience. That's what's changed history.
I've had many people tell me that getting arrested is on their bucket list, and
Now's the time.
I say yes. I say unfortunately, I'm able to help you with that. It's like you. I have some experience there. I'm not sure how much of that's going to happen on Sunday, although there will be some, I think. The other component that'll be happening is celebration, celebration of the things that are now happening, and really where the dam is starting to break around clean energy. Because that's the other remarkable thing about this moment. I just published a big excerpt in the New Yorker of this piece this book that of mine that's coming out in a couple of weeks.
That
And
article, by the way, is so important. I've told everybody I know to read it.
well, what's been interesting about it is the reaction, even from people who are pretty engaged in this work and in this world, and they still are saying, I didn't know. I didn't know how, because the numbers are astonishing. Jane, in May in China, they were putting up 100 solar panels every second. They built 3 gigawatts of solar power. That's 3 coal-fired power plants. They built those three of them every day of solar power. Uh, the change that's coming there in California, California, as people sit and watch this tonight, the power that they're using mostly now is coming from renewable energy, and at night it's coming from batteries. California is using 40% less natural gas to generate electricity than it did 2 years ago. Those are the kind of changes that we're starting to see. And if we can drive that change everywhere and deepen it in places like California, which still have plenty of work to do, then we have a chance. And some of that work needs to happen at the state and local level, precisely those down ballot kind of places that you were talking about. If we could change the way that we permit solar panels on people's rooftops, we'd go from having 5% of roofs in America with solar panels to Australia, which has 40%, just because it's so much easier and therefore cheaper to put it up. So we have a lot of things that we can do, and we are committed to doing them. And
So, would you like to see Sunday be more celebratory?
some of each, but yeah, if it gets through, if people come away thinking, man, we can do this, I think that's at this point the biggest threat to the Exxons of the world. I think that's why they worked so hard to elect Donald Trump, because they know that California is buying 40% less of their product, and that scares the living daylights out of them.
Black women in southern Louisiana fighting against liquefied natural gas forced the Biden administration to put a pause on our exporting, because that is like the biggest carbon bomb right there, Texas, Louisiana. Frontline people, average people made that happen. When they came to that billion-dollar lunch where Trump said, give me $1 billion and I'll get rid of the regulations, the one thing that they were really concerned about was exporting LNG.
Yep.
The things that those Black women had put a stop to,
Well, I was on a phone call last night with our mutual friend Rosetta Ozane, getting ready for Sunday. And one of the things that Third Act is doing in the course of this year is, as people put solar panels on their roofs, the companies that are helping them figure that out are donating money for the project of putting solar panels on the roof of Rosetta's headquarters there at the Vessel Project in Louisiana. And she was pleased as punch about the prospect of that, and about, as she put it, just the prospect of running their place on the power of the sun that pours down on us every day. That's our chance. That's our chance, friend.
should we make big posters that have the facts? Maybe
Absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of poster making going on. The person who's leading the artwork for all of this is that California native son, David Solnit, Rebecca's brother. who is the greatest public art guy, and there'll be lots of opportunities on workshops and things over the next few weeks. We should probably let these good people get back to work actually planning what they're doing. But I just really, Jane, for me, the privilege of just getting to say in public how much I adore you for the example you give us, for the work that you do, for the spirit, and for the brains that you bring to this whole thing. Thank you, friend. So
Thank you. I want
much.
to say one more thing, though. It's really important. I just got to say this because we're all old on this call. Take care of yourself. I work out, I sleep 8 hours every night. We have to take care of ourselves.
Amen. Amen to that.
God bless you all. Let's kick ass.